you'll now see a banner at the top of your Skype that says recording.
Right on.
Yeah, can you see that?
Oh yes.
Can you see it, Michael? Yeah,
yeah.
And Oliver, you can see that as well.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I'm an open book, you know.
Yeah, I thought you would be, but I just wanted to make sure that Oliver knew as well. But I wouldn't. You always know if somebody's recording you on Skype because that thing comes up. So that's yeah. You need to have no worry that somebody's recording you without you knowing. So yeah, far away. Go on ahead. We were talking about Trinity and the mediocrity.
Yes, basically what the end of the conversation was that this woman was saying that they weren't mediocre, that they needed extra money and more money, and you know like I said, no, I should have had the names, but on the top of my head, but I don't. But this gentleman, anyway, he didn't accept that. He said no. He said standards, he said, have just plummeted. And, we see this a lot, which, like I said, when academia is like, it's like it was as Lenin said, give me a decade of your youth and I'll change the world, and they've been doing it in colleges, and then they came into the secondary schools, and they've even surpassed. They're not even bothering with the secondary schools. They're bringing their ideas and teachings straight into preschools, even before national schools, and it just came down the line, and it left the colleges and just came into the very first schools. I suppose, definitely in the last 10 years, because some of the things that they're teaching and saying, to children and to young people, going back 15, 20 years ago, they would have been hunted from the country if they tried it. But like I said earlier, Aristotle said it, tolerance and apathy are virtues of a dying society. And basically that's what we're seeing. And because of political correctness, if you see one of the things that we had as I suppose white people, or as men, was we had, like you said, the ability to stand up and to fight, but we were told no, you can't be violent, you can't use your fists, or you can't threaten, and every time, or you can't be racist, and we put our hands up every time, because like you said, we have been told that this is how you do it, or this is the way forward. But who's telling us these things? Only the people that want to bring about these, I suppose, what you could only call crimes against humanity.
Well, if you look in the they've elevated mediocrity. That's how you collapse a society. This is all figured out by the professors from the University of Frankfurt School. If you look at what they were doing in the 20s and 30s, there's a reason why they were kicked out of Germany in the 1930s. And if you read, it's online now. It's I discovered this when I was working for this congressman in America. I think it was published in 1963 in the Congressional Record. But if you look at the 45 goals of the American Communist Party, you can Google it. It's all there. It's amazing. Yes. And those 45 goals have all been achieved, and they're all in Ireland, and it's what you're living under it. And so, this is an agenda, and it's been well worked out, and it's a very, very evil thing. If you read the Catholic encyclical against communism, if you study that, this stuff is not from God. And I think people need to study the Sabbatean Frankists. That's key to understand how we got here. I mean, that's what's really behind communism. That's what's behind the Rothschilds. That's what's behind all this social engineering, and has reached the commanding heights of these secret societies. This is where
I see.
Sabbatean, it's a Sabbatean, Sabetean, Sabbatean Frankism. The people who've written really well about it is a friend of mine, a guy called Christopher Jean Birkin.
Is that it?
That's it. It's
Okay.
the guy who writes about it. He's very good. He's a Jewish guy from Canada. His name henrymacow.com.
Oh,
If henrymacow.com was standard viewing in every Irish home, you'd have a very different society. He does. I've known Henry. Just after 9/11, I got in touch with him, and so I've been in touch with him for 20 years almost. And so if you just go onto that every morning, henrymacow.com, henrymakow.com. Look at he does one article a day, not always written by him. He's a very high IQ. The guy loves Christ. He knows that as a key part of our salvation, and our civilization is very much a part of that culture, along with Greek philosophy and Roman law. These things are important in our civilization. So Henry's very good. His focus is on feminism and the New World Order. And just click on him once a morning. Just see it. He puts up one. Only takes a few minutes to read, but you'll see. And he has people like John, a friend of mine, Christopher John Birkness. He wrote a book called Putin's Reign of Terror. He's written a lot of very good stuff. He's a great researcher. I speak with him. Read that book. Read Putin's Reign of Terror. I guess if I had to pick one book, just read that. You can read it in a week easily. It's like 250 pages long. Very, very good researcher. I'd say that's one of the essential reads, along with books like Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. But books by E. Michael Jones, very, very important. The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit is a must-read. Is that one of Michael Jones's?
Is that one of Michael Jones's?
Yeah, Dr. E. Michael Jones. Yeah, he just celebrated 50 years of marriage. I speak to him quite a bit on the phone. He knows that the ethno-nationalism is biblical. Okay, ethno-nationalism is reason. It is logos. It is, it's what everybody wants. Like I said, I lived in Japan. It's an ethno-state. The world wants ethno-states. All wars are rigged. Every single war is rigged. I've covered them for 15 years. So, and I've fought in one of them, and then I've covered the rest as a photojournalist. But they're all rigged. They're all rigged by the same central bank system.
You were in the Falklands? Nice.
Yeah, I was a young paratrooper in the Falklands War, like a lot of Irishmen. I mean, if you took the Irish out of British Special Forces, Airborne Forces, and Marines, you wouldn't have much of an army. And you could say the same for the American military. I mean, the Irish are very, very represented in elite forces and in Western armies. And so, I speak to Irish Rangers as well, or currently serving Irish Rangers. So morale is very low in these armies because of these foreign wars, and also the retention rate is very difficult to retain a lot of these highly trained soldiers because they leave the military once they've acquired some of these skills, and they end up working for military contractors. That's because there's more money to be made, and private military contract. War is being privatized. If you can't get a government to start a war, you can get private military contractors to start one for you. I mean, but they all intelligence services feed into the same central bank system, and even though there are very good people in all these intelligence services, they're caught up in a very bad system, and you've got secret societies, and that's key. I mean, this is all in the public record. None of this stuff. I mean, there are some great. Steve Pachinik is very good. Veterans Today, Gordon Duff is a very good website as well. Veteranstoday.com. I'd say that does pretty good stuff. He's got a lot of experience. A lot of intelligence people with an intelligence background work for Veteranstoday.com. UNZ.com is Ron Unz, a Jewish guy where I lived in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley, and Ron Unz is from Palo Alto. He made a lot of money in the high tech industry, and he set up this website, UNZ.com. His name is Ron Unz, and it's Unz.com. That's an essential. I'd say that's maybe the brightest site in America I mean, and the article was great. I mean, there's a lot of, he's now getting a lot of people from the dissident right, people like Andrew Joyce, who's a Scotsman, brilliant academic, very, very good. He's read anything that Andrew Joyce puts out. Well, he's on uns.com now. But yeah, he gets a lot of people from our community writing on him, and he's kind of up to speed. He's on our side, and he's very, very good the way he sort of handles things. But so a lot of people respond well to his to the articles on that site, and the people that, I mean, sometimes the comments are longer than the article. You know, I mean, incredible, bright people are on uns.com. So yeah, uns.com, Veterans Today, henrymacow.com. Those are very, very important. And I'd say the most important YouTube channels would be in our communities in this country. Keith Woods, I mean, brilliant, very, very good. The Jolly Heretic, English guy living in Finland. Anything that he puts out is good. Way of the World, of course, is very good. There's just loads. But I'd say Keith Woods is for our people. Because he has a political philosophy, and that's what's lacking in the dissident right or the nationalist movement in this country. They don't really have a political philosophy, and they don't have a global vision, and they need to get up to speed because they're elevating mediocrity. Really, that's what's happening in Irish nationalism. Is we ourselves are elevating mediocrity and are not coming together. So we're not effective at all.
One thing, Michael, sorry, Michael, one thing I often said it to my partner here is, you know, when you pick up a paper, you switch on a television, like you were saying there, you know, you'd like to see where's the openly where's the openly practicing Catholic, you know, on a radio or television show or journalism. Where's the openly pro-life person? Because like when these people go for these jobs, you know, they are just told there's no hope and we don't want the likes of you here. And yet for all, you know, I'm sure that's a form of discrimination in itself, but it doesn't count as discrimination. You know, they are just pushed aside because, like you said, you know, the rise of mediocrity. Because if somebody wants to bring in that actually has standards, and above all else, I suppose that somebody that has intellect, proper intellect, it poses a threat to a lot of these people. You know, like we see there now with a lot of the, like, take for example now CNN. They're not even in the top 30 channels in America anymore. They, you know, the gardening channel is watched more than CNN, and yet for all, RTE takes all of its talking points from these people, you know, and then they tell us they're part to Ireland, and we all believe, you know, that, you know, Orange Man bad and all the old cliches, but yet for all, like you say, there's no kind of, there's nobody. Now, it's one of the things I'd like to point out is the absolute hypocrisy of this, is to say, yeah, like we saw going back a bit ago, a small example of this now was when George Hook made a few controversial comments, and we saw, you know, the feminazis and the lefties coming out and they wanted to drum him out of existence, and they did, and they were left, but his rights counted for nothing. But you know, it is amazing, you know.
Well, these institutions, you know, the BBC or RTE, you're not going to change them. They've always been the enemy. The RTE are the enemy of the Irish people. The BBC are the enemy of the British people. So it's not really what they're doing. You know, we need to replace these with our own genuine media. I mean, the primary purpose of journalism. And I worked in it for 15 years as a war photographer. I never wrote anything. I was doing mostly 90% stills and some video. But I'd shot video for the BBC. You know, if you if you want to really know what's going on, well, you don't go to mainstream media. You know, these institutions are very, very corrupt. but they're brilliant at it. I mean, the BBC are the best. I mean, they're the incredible producers of disinformation, and they are obviously they have a lead role in a cage. You know, just like Pink Floyd said in the track "Wish You Were Here." But so we all have a walk-on role in this war, but these institutions have a lead role in a cage. They can't really tell the truth because they're serving another power. And so we just have to not overly concern ourselves with what they're doing, but what are we doing? And we must create our own media, our own radio, and we can do that. We have brilliant minds that can do that. And the Irish diaspora is so wealthy that because the root is dying, and the root of Ireland, the Irish people, is this land, and this land is that the people are dying here. And so that means the branches, which are the diaspora, they'll die too. So because we're living in the root, we are the custodians of ancient Celtic culture. We must be proud and elevate that and to revive that and to dust that off. I mean, Padre Pierce was trying to do that, but he's dead. Our heroes are ghosts. So we as a nationalist movement, we must unite and become kind of that living hero and just step into who we should be, which is the custodians of our culture. And it's our responsibility to save our civilization. We have no one else to blame. So don't overly focus on the current political class or the academia or the mainstream media. We must become, and that's why I think he is to kind of penetrate academia, because he's very, very good. I'm very impressed with him.
Michael, you make a great point there. The point of personal responsibility. If we're not doing something ourselves to promote Irish culture, whether it be working on learning the language, or if we know the language, teaching it to others, practicing our music. If we're good with the music, then teaching it to others, sharing the culture, also reaching out to other people that think the same, looking for other Irish nationalists. Then if we're just sitting back and consuming videos and infotainment, then really we've only got ourselves to blame, because consuming videos and infotainment isn't really going to forward the conversation, is it? What do you think, Michael? And Oliver?
We go out every day, rain or shine. We're up the mountains, we're on the beaches, we're in the forests. Myself and my children, we grow a lot of our own food. We go to mass. My children have never seen television. We listen to our own music, well, classical music and Irish traditional music. I'd say the best person I found in our movement is a man called Brendan Keane, and he lives in Galway. Brendan's brilliant. I mean, Brendan.
He's the guy, yeah.
Yeah, he's the best. I mean, I think he's kind of really, I mean, he's a fiddle player. He got pushed out of Galway because he was doing such great work. Antifa kind of got him chased out of town, but he's wonderful. And he's the tip of the spear in terms of reviving Irish culture, I would say. And so we must become familiar with his work and what he's doing. So we must, because the Irish diaspora, once the Irish diaspora sees that the Irish people in Ireland are united and becoming powerful and moving forward and not on the back foot all the time, and completely confident that we will win. We will win. Of course we're going to win. And we will become a light not only to our own diaspora around the world, but we will become a light to all nations of the world, because enough's enough. And the Catholic Church should be sounding like our Lord in his last public speech, Matthew 23. If you read Matthew 23, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. After they heard that was it. He had to be killed, because that's the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, Christ was a man's man. He was not a pacifist. He was not some happy clappy Christian. When he had to, he picked up the whip and he was violent to those people, those bankers in the temple, and he told the truth. But Matthew 23, everything that we're going down or going through is in Matthew 23, and that's what the Catholic Church should sound like. We should never be on that.
Sorry, lads. No, I was at a meeting before with John Bowler and Kerry, and like you're saying that the Irish people will win out, but we'll say it'll either come of two ways. Either they will wake up and take value in their identity and their heritage, or if they keep going down this road of, as I call them, following the Eurosexuals, like I said, now this European experiment, it's collapsing under the weight of its own absurdity, right? And the thing is, either way, the Irish people will have to come back to relying on themselves and to think, okay, we're standing on our own 2 feet. But again, whether it goes right or wrong, if the Irish people appreciate who they are and start doing the right things for the right reasons. But what we've seen here now, like I said, unraveling in the last few weeks or the last month or 2 months, it could come about very quickly. We could be back to the Irish pound. I'd like it if we were, and to take back another part of our identity. And the thing about it is, I could see that it could come one of two ways. It'll either come by chance, or it'll come by the fact that people want to assert themselves as being a proud nation.
Yeah, we have a lot to be proud of. We really do. You just go back. Brendan Keane, just study what he's putting together, and it really sends a shiver down your spine. You realize who we are. We're in an absolute holy land, a land of saints and scholars, and that's who we must become again. I'm so confident and excited and so happy about the mission that we're on, and we must not divide. We must stay united. We're all at different stages of spiritual and evolution in these things, these nationalist ideas. So we must each one teach one with great enthusiasm, keep everybody on point and working together. And those that are unwilling to work together, well, that's not our people. If you can't work as a team, you need to go sit on the bench and maybe not even be on the bench. But we need to feel the best team, and so somehow within all these political parties. I think my focus really wouldn't be on politics right now. I think we just have to work on education. We just have to work on unifying. We have to then get organized, and then maybe we can look into becoming a political party. Because at the moment, I think these party politics sort of distract everybody. And I think, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, it's 160 years old, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and it's useless. I mean, the 7 signatories of the proclamation, they're all members of the IRB. And I really want to see the IRB really step forward and figure out, because I know there's fractions within it, but to really become that, that's who we are. I mean, the Irish Republican Brotherhood needs to really take a lead role in all of this, not as a political party, but as in a lead role that's not in a cage, but is actually, look at we have the GAA. We have this. It's there. It's just it needs to be dusted off and unified. Get people away from television. Get them out in the hills. Get them reading. We need to, maybe there's 100 books. Maybe get everybody reading the same books. Just get all on the same page. Let's get that right first, but let's get healthy. Let's start loving our land. I mean, it's such a beautiful land. I mean, it's breathtakingly beautiful. And I've lived and worked on every continent. And I've been to the hottest places on earth, the coldest places on earth. but Ireland is so gorgeous. It's so beautiful, our land. And this is our land. And we must restore it. And it's, our farmings, oh my God, the farmers are being attacked. And it's just, but it's all up to us. And we have a lot of work to do, but it's going to be an absolute joy. And we must not be on the back foot. There's this fear of, being, upsetting. I love these crazy lefties, they're our people too, but they're just victims. They've just been social engineered. They got unhappy lives. A lot of them are kind of mutant genes and a lot of mental disorder there, but they're our people. And I think once we become this powerful force, we'll become a magnet. There's a lot of people who used to be liberals who are now on the dissident right. They realize that they've been socially engineered.
Yeah, I'm one of
them. So don't hate them. Libertarians, libertarians, they make nice neighbors, but you certainly don't want them, organizing your society. They're nice people, but a lot of libertarians.
But what's funny, lads, if you had to go around, like you have these political parties and political groups, and they have their manifestos and all their ideas, but we'll say we could talk and discuss about we'll say the values, right? And if somebody says, oh, I vote for this party, but if you had a couple, we'll say 5 or 6 simple questions based on values, you'd say that their values would align with that of ethno-nationalism,
right?
And they wouldn't even realize it because they probably wouldn't give it much thought, but they don't realize how important it really is.
Well, I think one of the purposes, it was, as all wars are rigged. No war starts without it being rigged, and it's agreed upon when it starts and it's agreed upon when it ends. And this is well understood by people who study, military history, and these things are definitely rigged. And what demonized nationalism, or what demonized ethno-nationalism, was what was happening in Germany in the 1930s. Yes.
Michael, can I interrupt for 1 second? Because I think this would be a good point to ask you for a book recommendation about the rigging of wars. Because this isn't something that's taught in this isn't something you pick up a generic history book in the library. It's not going to talk about this. So to give somebody like for example, I'm interested in somebody like myself I'm very new to this concept over this past couple of years. So if there was some sort of primer or be written from the point of view of to show, okay, this is what happened in the First World War. This is how it was rigged. This is what happened in the Second World War. This is how it was rigged. This is what happened in the Franco-Prussian War. These are the elements that were working behind the scenes.
Sorry, Conor. I have an idea.
Yeah.
I did it in Killarney one day. I did it just for the hell of it. I went into Eason's, and I said, "Do you have a book called The Great Lie by Dinesh D'Souza?" Right, and it was basically about the Nazi roots to the Democratic Party in the United States, because the Frankfurt. No, not the Frankfurt. Oh, what was that manifesto that the Germans had again? What was the name of it? The Nuremberg Laws. The Nuremberg Laws was a direct copy of the Democratic Manifesto. And because one of Hitler's henchmen was studying in the south, in the southern states at the time, and what happened was Hitler was trying to think of an idea how to get rid of the Jews, and what can we do? And his boy was there. He said, "Oh, I'm just back from college in America." He said, "Sorry to tell you, Führer, but they already have this idea in America. You just take out the word black and replace it with the word Jew, and there you go." But the name of the book is called The Great Lie. Now, of course, you can only buy it online because most bookshops won't stock it.
I've heard of Dinesh D'Souza. All right, he's a Canadian, isn't he?
No, he's an Indian American, and he was arrested before by the Obama administration, they kind of singled him out really and targeted him because he's an academic really. Well, I don't know, is he an academic? But he gives speeches on campuses anyway, and the left don't like him. But one of the books anyway, I never actually got around to getting it myself, but it was called the Great Lie, and basically. That's one book that I know of anyway. I don't know if that's help or not. No,
it's not bad. He interviewed Richard Spencer, but a good one is Smedley Butler, who's maybe the most highly decorated Marine. He was the commander of U.S. Marines, and he wrote a book called "War is a Racket."
And that's we're on the right path here. Yeah. Okay.
It's a good one. Yeah, war is a racket, and it is. I mean, it's I've been in it, and lots of them. And so war is a racket, and many journalists know this. But if you want to make it in mainstream journalism, you just keep quiet. Especially if you want to make it in the BBC, you just keep quiet. Like if every commercial pilot knows. I was a commercial pilot. On the day of 9/11, every commercial pilot knows is the official story is a lie. And we just flew back from Spain recently, myself and my children, visiting my father and my sister who live there. But when we came back, because I'm an FAA commercial pilot, even though I'm no longer valid because I haven't flown since 2009, but I'm still an FAA commercial pilot. I just need to kind of do a flight test. But because I am an FAA pilot, I got to get up onto the flight deck, and my son got to sit in the right-hand seat, which is where the first officers and the co-pilot seats. And, we had a great chat for about 15 minutes up on the flight deck. And these guys flying big, heavy jets, they totally agree with me because we're pilots and we can chat about this stuff. So we know that 9/11 was a racket as well. And but it's all part of that kind of neoconservative APAC kind of agenda. And to get these wars started in the Middle East, so war is a racket is a really good read. That's a good one. And if you don't have time to read about the Second World War, there's an English guy, and his YouTube channel is called Horus, 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 and he's good. Yeah, he's pretty good. He's done some good analysis. I'd say Horus. Or read Putin's Reign of Terror. That's a good read. If you want to see these things, Putin. I'd say Putin's Reign of Terror is a essential read for our people, for because it brings. And I speak to Christopher quite a bit, and he's very good. Christopher John Birkness, and the name that you get it on Amazon, or if you go to cjbbooks.com, that's Christopher John Birkness. So CJB. Books.com, you can buy it from there, or you can get it on Amazon. Putin's Reign of Terror. Read it, and it's bang up to date. He only published it a few months ago, and it's correct. It's very, very good research.
It's easy enough to get your teeth into for first, just approaching this subject for the first time. Would you say it gives a bit of a historical overview before it launches in?
Yeah. Well, just read. Listen to Horace. Listen to Horace. He's done very good analysis of the Second World War. David Irving has done some good stuff. I met with David Irving in California some years ago after 9/11. We had a wonderful German meal together. But David Irving is a very good, respected historian. Although of course he upsets the usual suspects because he's just too honest. But he's a very good. Respected academic on the Second World War. Anything that he's written is pretty good. I spent 6 years of my childhood growing up in Germany because my father, an Irishman, from Cork, but he was in the British Army, like a lot of Irishmen, and so we were living over there. But I got sent back to England. And I went to a boarding school in southern England. And my German language teacher was this very nice Jewish gentleman who'd escaped the labor camps in the Second World War. And he loved the German people. I mean, and when I was a teenager, he hooked me up with a book called Winter in Moscow by Malcolm Muggeridge. That was kind of one of my first red pills as a teenager. Winter in Moscow by Malcolm Muggeridge. Very, very, very good book. And that really kind of exposes the truth of communism, because at the time when he wrote that book, communism was, it's a wonderful thing. What's going on in Russia? The liberals in England, had a death grip on the civilization. And but Malcolm Muggeridge kind of smelt a rat, so he went over to Moscow and basically exposed the truth, and they destroyed him after that. And another very important book that I read once again from this Jewish guy in my boarding school, my German language teacher. He told me, loaned me his copy of a book called The Controversy of Zion by Douglas Reed. And that's the book. And he was a Times journalist. He worked for the Times in the Times of London, and he was their Berlin correspondent before, during, and after the Second World War. Well, when he wrote that book, The Controversy of Zion by Douglas Reed, that really... Man, they destroyed him after that. He got destroyed by the people who wanted to keep the lid on the truth. So it's all about, that's what the Irish nationalist movement has to be. It has to be about love, the truth, and better ideas. And we don't have to hate anybody. I love all peoples of the world, and that's it. And my Zulu friend in South Africa, my friends in Japan, I got friends all over the world. They all agree with the McCarthy Plan. It's not like it's me, but it's a continuation of the work of Senator Joseph McCarthy, and it's about we've got to fix this thing. And he was an Irish Catholic, he was a combat veteran, and so I guess we have that in common. But my friends around the world agree with the McCarthy Plan, because it's about ethno-nationalism. The soul of ethno-nationalism, the heart of ethno-nationalism is we love all peoples of the world, but we love our people the most. And if every ethnic group is saying that, that's the end of the world. That's no more wars. So ethno-nationalism is the key to world peace. It's the key to a beautiful symbiotic world. And all we have to do is isolate these warmongers, isolate these criminals, isolate these secret societies, and get the best of every ethnic group elevated to be in the commanding heights of its civilization. And you will see an incredible world.
I was just this morning there. Now I just watched a quick clip on YouTube about the success, I suppose, of the economy in Botswana, and how it came up to be what it is today. Now it was only 10 minutes, but basically when the man that was made president of this country, he hired people on content of character and merit, as opposed to ethnicity or these all what you call diversity programs and all this kind of stuff, and it's average, GDP or a household income. The medium is $21,000 or something, which I was surprised by, for an African country. And then you see a country, like South Africa, and it's just gone down the toilet, and it's when I met a man from Nigeria at the start of March, because the battery in my Jeep died outside in the car park across from Cork Hospital, and I just was talking to him for a few little minutes, and what he said was, loved his own country, but he said, like you were saying, Michael, a lot of these leaders and put in charge of these countries are weak. They are controlled leaders by private interests, really, that aren't good for countries. And when they are more marginalized parts of their societies get affected, like what we end up with is the migration crisis that we're seeing now. They're marginalized people are being pushed over onto countries like us, and we have plenty of problems. And the problem with Ireland is, of course, it's not very rich in resources. The problem with these other countries, like in Africa, is their problem is they're too rich. It's called the curse of resources, I think they call it. And
Venezuela curse.
Yes, of course, and they've been trying to start a war in the last 3 or 4 days on a number of occasions in Venezuela, the fuckers. But and like the people that come from these countries, like you say, they're academics and they're bright people, but their own countries just have let them down, you know, and Ireland is letting its people down in the same way. And when these people, these migrants, when they come here, they find out that they've been sold a lie by the human traffickers, by the NGOs, and by everybody along the way. And next thing they realise, they're over here and they are competing with the poorest part of our society for the same resources, for the same place.
It's a racket, man. It's a racket. Yeah, read War is a Racket by Smedley Butler. I mean, there's in every African nation. I mean, I've spent, you know, I was working with the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, covering the war there. At the time, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, one of the senior people in that, their completely Marxist organization, was this guy called Tedros, and he was kind of one of the leading officers in the. They were on the other side. I was with the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, who were fighting to what is now called Eritrea. It's kind of one of the world's newest countries, but at the time it was just Ethiopia, and that whole famine was rigged anyway. I mean, Live Aid were very much a part of the big lie. I mean, a lot of that aid food that was sent to the Ethiopian government was feeding its army. They were funded by the Soviet Union in terms of weapons and, you know, aircraft and things. But the food that we're getting, they had to create this famine. I mean, famines, you know, crops do fail, but famines are man-made. I mean, we know about the one that we had here for 5 years. It was totally rigged. So famines are rigged for all sorts of reasons. But the one in Africa was rigged, and I covered it. You know, I filmed many dying people in Ethiopia. Was rigged, and it was feeding the Ethiopian army. But the surplus was being sold by Tigrayan traders and taken into the markets of the Sudan. And I documented that for the Sunday Times. And, you know, I was the first journalist that went behind enemy lines and recorded all this. Well, at the time, the guy who was, you know, working with the Ethiopian army fighting us was the Tigrayan People's, the TPLF, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. Well, Tedros, the senior Politburo guy within that organization, is now the head of the WHO.
Yes, I recognize the name, Tedros. Yeah,
he's the head guy, and he's a rabid communist. He's a rabid communist, and he's the head guy in the WHO.
Dr. Tedros.
So yeah, and so and there's not all African nations, the borders, and that's what I'm trying to work with my Zulu friend in South Africa, and he's a wonderful, wonderful guy, a real African, wants to come to Europe, wants to come to America as a tourist because he's African. He knows he doesn't belong here, just like the Dalai Lama has said, you know, and which of course the wackos on the left, bless their hearts, they hate because all the Dalai Lama, he said, Europe belongs to Europeans. All these other races should get out and go back to their own countries and make their own countries a success. But you can't in Africa. You know, the best of Africans don't run African nations. You know, African nations are just put, you know, the leadership of African nations are put in there by the central bank system. No, if you had to draw a map of all African nations drawn by the kind of enlightened indigenous aristocracy of African ethnic groups, then the map would look very, very different. And the reason why there's so much conflict in all these nations is because they're nations living within a nation. There should be at least 4 nations in Nigeria. There should be many, many more African nations. Then you'd see peace. But it's all rigged. I mean, it's absolutely all rigged. So I've met, I mean, I remember being in a trench with the Sudanese People's Liberation Front with this guy. He was known as the father of the night because he was such a brilliant warrior and a great guy. He spoke English better than I did, and he could recite streams of Shakespeare. He thought I would know all this stuff, and I felt like a complete idiot compared to him. And so there's high IQ. There's so many amazing Africans, but they're either dead, living in exile, or they keep quiet because and you know, it's very, very tragic. So this brain drain that's going on in Africa, it's like, no, these people need to be back in their lands, and we need to be backing them up. And that's where I just know that the Irish nationalist movement, you know, it will become this amazing think tank, and it'll have incredible solutions because we have so many bright Irish people all over the world that know all the best ideas, that have all the solutions, and we will literally become a light unto the nations. And Africa is so. I mean, everywhere is beautiful, but Africa has just been, just been destroyed. And
one thing, Michael, I was saying to my partner there before, going back about maybe 2 years ago or so, and Conor, that what I saw, I flicked on the news one day and I saw on the Dáil that they signed this declaration that they won't be allowed to basically drill for our own gas and oil in Irish waters or Irish territory anymore. And one thing that kind of clicked with me was, isn't it lovely now, all of your grandstanding, that we're so good and we're great and we won't get the gas and oil from Irish waters, but what will happen instead is in South Sudan, you'll put an AK-47 into the hands of a 12-year-old child and tell him off you go, and give him his rations for the day now, and that's where your cheap energy will come from now, because I think they discovered oil there going back 2 or 3 years ago. A big I suppose amount of it, however they measure it, I don't know, but they won't. The Irish could get their own energy from their own land, but instead, no, we'll do all our grandstanding here and give ourselves a big pat on the back. I think it was people before profit, or as I call them, Peters before the paddy. They signed this thing in anyway, and I was thinking this is more of it now. We should, like you said, we should be doing our own stuff and doing our own thing and be less reliant on these countries, because the fallout from our demands that are happening to these countries, and these are the first people that will lecture you about social responsibility and corporate responsibility, and yet for all, all of these people, they live in a first world nation, in a first world lifestyle, but yet and for all, they never stop to think, what's going to happen, we say in these territories when these rival factions, just are squabbling over resources, one tribe against another tribe, and even military contractors are hardly even needed, because one fellow wants to be more powerful than the next, and all you have to do is just drop a shipment of guns into either tribe, and they'll do the work for you. They'll take each other out, and it baffles me like that. That these politicians, they think they're clever. They either think they're smarter than everybody else, or they think everybody's as thick as them. And it just clicked to me, and I was thinking, yeah, it's the poorest people now, because we're more reliant on them, and we're going to put the demand onto them instead of looking into our own, what we have ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, every nation should manage these are natural resources. Okay, so we should manage our own resources, and Southern Sudan. I mean, I covered the war in Southern Sudan. So, well, it was one country, North and South Sudan. Anyway, now it's two countries, North and South Sudan. But so there was this war between the North and the South when I was covering it, and Southern Sudan could be so wealthy because that's where the oil is, and there's so much money being made out of Southern Sudan. But now it's turned into a tribal war, and it's just falling. It's an absolute nightmare in Southern Sudan, and it had so much potential. But because they find fractures, and the enemies, the central bank system just fuels it, and it's so transparent. And our government should know this stuff. The UN knows. I mean, the UN is the worst. The World Health Organization. I mean, these are criminal organizations. The United Nations and the World Health Organization these are criminal organizations. I know friends. I have friends, I've met many of them over the years that work in both. These are criminal organizations, all right? And that's proven. I mean, there's so many court cases against these institutions. So we've elevated mediocrity to the highest level. So they shouldn't be. These are open, organized crime groups, okay? These are organized criminals. And our politicians they're in on the fix. All right, if these people, you know, I've sat down with TDs and senators in this country. Some of them, I was with one, I don't know, a few months ago. They hadn't read a book for over 4 years. They hadn't read a book for over 4 years. And they like believe the UN and they believe the WHO. But anyone who works in this world knows that these people are mafia. They know that these people are organized crime. And so it's not really what they're doing. We just have to replicate these organizations and fill them with the finest of people, and the finest of people exist everywhere. And so we just have to kind of harness that. And that's what I see the Irish nationalist movement is doing, is actually replicating these international institutions and showing them what, you know, what's really going on. And we can do that. You literally just cut and paste all this stuff. You know, you just need someone with high-tech skills and the networks there. We've got Skype, we've got the internet. You know, it's like, so ignore these people. We just have to, we're not going to change them. You know, you can't change organized crime. You know, you just have to be, you know, just outfox it. And we are, you know, and because we have integrity, you know, because we have love, because we have truth, you know, we of course we can easily put something together. And so I wouldn't get overly, you know, lost in the whinging and the whining, but like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, we're doing nothing. We're doing absolutely nothing.
I see there, going back a bit ago, that like you say, no, what we're talking about there, ethno-nationalism to some degree now in some of the African countries. I know they assembled, was it the East Africa Trade Federation? 6 countries, Ghana and some surrounding countries came together, and they had a common trade area, a common currency, and basically a common area of travel. So they came together as kind of one unit, because shortly before or after they founded the East Africa Trade Federation, Emmanuel Macron was there, and the president of Ghana was giving a speech, and what he said was, the Ghanaian president said, while he said we appreciate the help from the West, he said we would also appreciate if there was less interference. And of course, Lafrogue was there, and he didn't know where to look or where to put himself. He was squirming in his suit. But you know, like I've heard it said before that, you know, whenever good people stand up in these countries, they're swiftly cut down, and it's usually because of private interests. And yet and for all, when you could have somebody like Jacob Zuma or what's his name? He died there. Mugabe. When they get sick, they're treated in the best hospitals in London and the best hospitals in America. And the reason being is because they're the people that are looking after these guys. Is the people, like I said, like you were saying, these guys, the UN, the WHO. I mean, could you imagine? Because somebody I've known for years. And again, I didn't give myself the time to go into the detail of it, but that there was people sitting on the United Nations Security Council that owned weapons companies and had shares in weapons companies. So if that wasn't a telltale sign of what these people were really like and really about, you know, oh man, it was just crazy.
Yeah, transparency, you know, peace and truth and reconciliation. I mean, we just expose these people whilst we're busy, you know, rebuilding these institutions. So, yeah, we can do that. I mean, look at Gaddafi. Look at the ideas that Gaddafi had for Africa. Well, he definitely had to be killed. You know, just look at what he was doing in Libya.
Because
look at the Ba'ath Party in Iraq. Study what the Pan-Arab, you know, the Ba'ath Party and what you know, study the Ba'ath Party. Why is it so popular? Look at its ideas, and its ideas of, you know, you could say we're greatly influenced by Italian philosophy as well. But you know, these globalists, they don't want this. They don't want these brilliant ideas. They don't want the ideas that are coming out of Gaddafi or you know, the Ba'ath Party. They don't want these things they at all, because they're better ideas. And we're going to win. That's it. We're going to win because we're
Michael.
Connected to spirit. We're connected to nature.
Sorry, Michael. I think what has came as a big hammer blow now against these organisations, and it should be a windfall for nationalism is the collapse of the petrodollar. That's why Gaddafi was taken out. He was going away from the petrodollar, going to trade on the euro and pipe his energy into Europe in pipeline, and that's one of the reasons he was taken out as well, because it threatens the petrodollar. Now the petrodollar is under attack and it's on the verge of collapse. And I think a lot of these organizations and a lot of these people will be weakened when that will happen. I think it will, because we like, one of the things I know is Russia has a pipeline built into China. They have no debt. They have stacks of gold. They're collapsing the price of oil. Now the only fucking side effect of that is you have a country like Nigeria whose budget, whose main export is oil, and their budget is underpinned by oil making $57 a barrel. Now it's currently,
they haven't invested. Like Colombia, they didn't invest in other. Like Colombia, this guy was running for presidency 2 years ago, and he said the worst thing that happened to Colombia was the petrochemical boom. He wanted to move away from that because people just sat back on the profits of petrochemical products, and there was it's not a labor intensive industry. Sorry, is there a bit of echo there? Yeah, sorry. Let me just.
That's a good point. It's an important point.
Yeah, let me just move away from that other speaker. Yeah, so the same thing is these. If a dictator gets in, or a lazy class, elitist class, and then they just become a client class of the international finance capitalists. They don't make the investments in native industry, in other indigenous industries, and the oil industry was labor unintensive. So it generated great profits, but there was no trickle down. Basically, there was no trickle down. A few small families or landowners and engineering companies got rich off the back of it, but there was absolutely no trickle down into the there was no throughput into the vast population. Whereas something like agriculture does give you that. It mightn't have the same value of exports, but the important thing is that through the money, the wealth moving through the hands of the big farmers, the smaller farmers, down to the sharecroppers, etc., and shopkeepers, local transport, all the rest of that. Sorry, just wanted to jump in there. I'm away behind. I'm away off the pace with you guys. I'm really learning a lot from this conversation. Isn't it amazing that you guys just came into this conversation without really knowing each other and just by chance?
Yeah.
Isn't it? This is what happens when you put nationalists together. I had invited you guys into a conversation, and then I didn't even show up because I ended up doing the call in Messenger, and you guys just turned up in Skype, picked up the phone and started nattering away to each other, and then I came in late, and it was already flying. It was a fantastic conversation. So this is the magic that happens when you get in contact with other nationalists, So don't be afraid, I'm just saying this to the audience because I'm thinking I'll put this out with your permission, lads. I'll make this available as a podcast, just for educational purposes, and also to encourage people of the magic, what can happen when you just pick up the phone and talk to somebody else, talk to a fellow nationalist.
Yeah. Sorry to go back to one of the things we were talking about earlier was, the thing is that when we were talking about how our identity was being, assassinated by these, I suppose, people who had vested interests, basically motivated by money. They have principles like money and devoted to power and things like that. And if you betray one of these principles, you will be betrayed in turn. But going back to I think it was Lenin or Stalin recruited a woman to actively recruit active and practicing homosexuals to infiltrate the Catholic Church. And their job, when they got into higher ranking positions, now she recruited, was it 1,000 or 1,100 of them?
That was Bella Dodd. Bella Dodd.
Sorry?
That was Bella Dodd. Yeah.
And when they got into power and ascended through the ranks, their job was to continue this with this pollution and I suppose degradation of the foundation of I suppose the faith, and it spread mainly in the US, as far as I know, because that was the intended target, was the United States. And it worked, it did a lot of damage, there's no doubt about it, but it did untold damage.
He's important, which is why Senator Joseph McCarthy, he got going as well, even though he, everything that he was revealing was, understood by the FBI 20 years earlier. So, but he was sort of late in the game, but he, McCarthyism is alive and well. We're still at it. But because it is about love. He was just showing what's really going on, because this communist agenda is about hate. The communist agenda is about hate, it's about deception, and it's about bad ideas. And we as ethno-nationalists are about love, truth, and better ideas. And Bella Dodd, she came into the Catholic Church, and she was a rabid communist. She was a senior member of the American Communist Party, and her book's very important. She was brought into the Catholic faith by Archbishop Fulton Sheen, and who's brilliant as well. So she's very important to read. And in fact, a really good book on Senator Joseph McCarthy. Brilliant senator. He was a judge at the age of 29. He was he volunteered for the Marine Corps. He's a combat veteran. Great guy. Very brilliant. Politician, highly respected in the day, except by the vermin on the left, bless their hearts. But a good book about him, and it's kind of what we're going through right now, and it's an easy book to read. It's got a lot of pictures in it, and it's called St. Joseph of Wisconsin, and that's the story about Senator Joseph McCarthy, and it gives a really good build-up and covers his mysterious death. But that's a really good read. So I don't know, and the reason why they have to destroy our ethnic nations, because that's the final nail in the coffin. Once they've got us fighting amongst ourselves, because that's what happens in ethno-nationalism or in ethno-states. Once you make them multicultural, it becomes a war zone. I mean, there's no one there's no police officer or any kind of frontline person in a emergency medical facility is crying out for multiculturalism. They know, you cannot effectively police a multiracial, multi-religious, multicultural society. And police officers, they are on the front line, and they have to deal with the stuff. And none of them want more of it. And you cannot fund such a society. It just so which is why it's part of the collapse. So I need to end, because I've got to go do some gardening work with my children. They're kind of chomping at the bit, and
thanks a million, Michael, for helping, for educating us here. Would you mind maybe we could run through a roll call of countries or areas, regions where multiculturalism hasn't worked, just for those who might be new to this topic. Hopefully, a few, well, inverted commas, normies will be listening to this. Maybe even some of my friends and relatives. I can think off the top of my head. I can think of Yugoslavia. Where else? Well, the United States is becoming increasingly multicultural and increasingly divided. Go ahead.
Doesn't work anywhere. It doesn't work in America. I spent 10 years living in America. It doesn't work there at all. I mean, you look at Sweden's the rape capital of the world. It's awful. Look at England. Look at France. But if you look at 6,000 years of recorded human history, read Gibbon's The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. Multiculturalism doesn't work. If you want to destroy, it's a military move. It's you know, migration is warfare by other means. You know, read any respected military historian. But you know, so 6,000 years of recorded human history, multiculturalism. Whenever you mix other people from other, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So that's why ethno-nationalism is the most beautiful thing. It is the key to world peace. It really is. And ethno-nationalism doesn't mean that you don't welcome the stranger like Christians should, but you welcome the well-behaved tourist and you welcome the well-behaved temporary essential guest worker. You know, ethno-nationalism, that's why they hate it. That's why they're demonizing it. But don't be on the back foot. You know you've got the solution. So as Irish ethno-nationalists, you march forward with absolute joy in your heart because you have the solution to all the troubles of the world. And we will fix it. And we have to fix it. And we have to come together. Otherwise, we're letting us down and we're letting the whole world down. And we're literally pissing on the graves of our great heroic ancestors, people like Padre Pierce and Michael Collins and the 7 signatories of the proclamation. If we don't come together, we're really pissing on their graves.
Oh, Michael, great speech, great, fantastic. Loved hearing that. Loved hearing that. You're making a fantastic case there, Michael. I'd love to get you and maybe Oliver and Brendan. Brendan, we talked about Brendan earlier, and the guy, yeah, and the guy who was in the live chat with us a couple of weeks ago, David O'Reilly. Do you remember David with the long hair? He's the Irish Celtic specialist and does the reenactments of with the Irish chariot.
Yeah, get him on. The guy I was trying to get hold of as well is a guy called Tom Ryan from the Irish Republican Brotherhood. He was voted in as the new president of the IRB. I think there's kind of a bit of a war going on in the IRB, but I'm all about trying to get.
I picked up on that, yeah, because there seems to be two heads.
Yeah, and you know, I love these brothers. I mean, they're our elders, and so we have to honour them. But they need to somehow figure that mess out. But I would say, you know, I speak with Billy McGuire. I'd say, you know, it's and you know, Billy's good. He's been on Niall's stream, and who we haven't heard from is Tom Ryan, and I, you know, they both ring me. So I would get Tom on as well because we've heard from Billy. I would get Tom Ryan on, and I'd get Brendan Keane on. You know, I don't have to be there. I've got stuff to do as well, but I'd be happy to join in. But I really want to listen to Brendan Keane and to Thomas Ryan. And I think, you know, we have to find who are the best of our people. And Keith Woods, I think Keith Woods is brilliant. I'd love to get Keith. I'd love to see Keith and Thomas Ryan and Brendan Keane. I'm kind of on a roundtable discussion. Let's roll. You know, let's have fun. You know, we're going to win. That's it. I've got to go, brothers, and I want to do a lot of gardening before I make supper.
Good on me in August. Thank you very much.
Yeah. God bless you.
All right,
God bless you, Oliver. So I'm going to stop the recording. I'm just going to say, if I do publish this, please like, subscribe, more content, and share and comment below. Good stuff. Thanks.